Dear friends, welcome to Inquest. In this video, let's discuss about 13th October 2021 daily current affairs, useful for your UPSC, KPSC and all other competitive exams. And PDF is given down in the description for your further reading. So let's see the index of today's discussion. Article number 1, National Green Tribunal endowed with suo motu powers to save environment, says Supreme Court. So as per the directions of Supreme Court, now National Green Tribunal, in terms of or in case of any issues that is related to environment, they have the powers to self register the cases and do the proceedings. That is called as suo motu powers. Article number 2, key United Nations Biodiversity Summit opens in China. Let's see the objectives of this particular summit. Article number 3, India invited to become full-time International Energy Agency member. So let us see the condition under which we can become the member of International Energy Agency. Article number 4, Prime Minister to launch PM Gati Shakti. So let us see the advantages of PM Gati Shakti program. Article number 5, Nobel 2021 in economics has been conferred. So let us see who are all the winners and what are their contributions. Now let's go to the news number 1 and discuss in detail. National Green Tribunal need not wait for Godot to save environment, says Supreme Court. So what is wait for Godot? So this is actually quote. It has been picked from one of the stories. They will be waiting for a character, but the character never turns up. So that is called as wait for Godot. So in the sense, National Green Tribunal, if there is any issue that is related to environment, they need not wait for anybody to report. Rather than that, they can start their initiative by filing suo motu. They can register self, cases self, and they can do the further procedure. So that is as per the new directions by the Supreme Court. Now let's see this article in complete details. The Supreme Court has declared the National Green Tribunal's position as a unique forum endowed with suo motu powers to take up environmental issues across the country. So now it will be a unique forum. So National Green Tribunal henceforth will be a unique forum endowed with suo motu powers. They can self-register the cases and do the further process if it is any issue that is related to environment across the country. The exercise of powers by National Green Tribunal is not circumscribed by the receipt of applications. So they need not wait till they receive applications. When substantial questions relating to the environment arise and the issue is civil in nature and those related to act, the National Green Tribunal, in our opinion, even in absence of an application, can self-ignite action either towards amelioration or towards prevention of harm. So the major condition here is, this is what you need to remember here, issue should be environment related and it should be civil in nature. It should not be criminal in nature. Then they can self-ignite action. They need not wait anybody to raise an application. They can self-ignite action either towards amelioration. Amelioration is nothing but to make things better or prevention of the harm. And the role of National Green Tribunal was not simply educatory in nature. The tribunal has to perform equal vital roles that were preventative, ameliorative, and remedial in nature. The judgment described the NGT as a complementary, competent, specialized forum to deal with all environmental multidisciplinary issues, both as original and also as an appellate authority. So it can function as an appellate authority. Now, what do you mean by appellate authority? So now National Green Tribunal will be authorized to hear appeals. Which complex issues were hitherto is nothing but till now dealt by the high courts and the Supreme Court. So till now, any issue or complex issues that are related to environment were dealt by high courts and Supreme Courts. Henceforth, the National Green Tribunal can act as appellate authority. So this is what is the new direction given by Supreme Court to National Green Tribunal. So with this, let's go to article number 2. Key United Nations Biodiversity Summit opens in China. a key United Nations summit tasked with protecting biodiversity. So task of this is to protect biodiversity. So this summit opens in China and online. So this is going live or offline in China, and it is also available online as countries meet to protect ecosystems and prevent mass extinction weeks before the COP26 climate conference. So we have weeks left for COP26 climate conference. Before that, China has started this particular summit, and major objectives of this is protecting the ecosystems and prevent mass extinction of different species. Beijing, the world's biggest polluter, has sought to position itself in recent years as a world leader on environmental issues after Washington's withdrawal from international commitments under former President Trump's administration. So, dear friends, if you remember, when Trump was the president of United States of America, they actually withdrew from the international commitments under international commitments, after which now China is trying to proclaim as world leader on environmental issues. The online summit setting the stage for face-to-face meeting in April. So there will be face-to-face meeting in April. We'll see parties to the Convention on Biological Diversity discuss new targets for protecting ecosystem by 2030. Up for debate are the 30 by 30. Now, what is this 30 by 30 plan? This is to give 30% of land and oceans protected status by 2030. So at least by 2030, 30% of the land and ocean should get protected status. So that is why it is called as 30 by 30 plan, a measure to support a measure supported by a broad coalition of nations. So it cannot happen by just one country. So that is why there should be support by coalition of different nations, as well as a goal to halve the use of chemicals in agriculture. So the other objective is to reduce the chemical use in agriculture to half of its initial quantity. So that is what is called as goal to halve the use of chemicals in agriculture and stop creating plastic waste. So these are the different takeaway points from this particular summit. So with this, let's go to article number 3. India invited to become full-time IEA, that is International Energy Agency. So International Energy Agency has invited the world's third largest energy consumer. So we are the world's third largest energy consumer to become its full-time member. A proposal, if accepted, will require New Delhi to raise strategic oil reserves to 90 days requirement. Now, what is this strategic oil reserves to 90 days requirement? That means we need to reserve the oil that will suffice the usage of the country for about 90 days. But now we are at 9.5 days only. Our fuel can without borrowing fresh fuel, if the fuel that is already there in the country is used for our regular purposes, the entire fuel gets exhausted in 9.5 days. But that should be updated to 90 days. So this is the condition to become the permanent member of IEA. In March 2017, India became an associate member of this agency. Now we are just an associate member. Now they have invited us to become the permanent member. So India's current strategic oil reserves equal to 9.5 days of its requirement. So as I told you, within 9.5 days, if you don't borrow fresh fuel, all the fuel is going to be exhausted, but that should be upgraded to 90 days to become the permanent member of International Energy Agency. So with this, let's go to article number 4, Prime Minister to launch PM Gati Shakti. Now, what is this PM Gati Shakti? Before going into the article, I just want you to understand the gist of it. So let us say there is an infrastructure development like construction of a road. So if there is a construction of road, many a times we have seen that after construction, the road will be once again dug to lay cables or gas pipelines. So the entire construction of the road is going to be spoiled again. Now this is going to cause two problems. One, the amount of money that is incurred for infrastructure development is entirely going to be wasted, and this is going to prove to be a lot of inconvenience to the citizens. To avoid this, all the stakeholders who are going to work at one particular place, for example, they use the same place for construction of road, laying cables or gas connections, all those departments and ministries will be put together, and there will be proper coordination during the infrastructure development. So that program is called as Gati Shakti. So this is going to avoid loss of the money due to the money that is going to be invested on infrastructure development. At the same time, it will not be inconvenient for the citizens. So now let's see this article in complete details. So in a historic event for the infrastructure landscape of the country, Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi will launch PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan for Multimodal Connectivity at Pragati Maidan, New Delhi. Infrastructure creation in India had suffered for decades from multiple issues. So as I told you before, the infrastructure development has been struggling for a lot of decades. So there was a lack of coordination between different departments. For example, once a road was constructed, other agencies dug up the constructed road again for activities like laying the underground cables or gas pipelines, etc. So this is what I told you, due to lack of coordination. So even though road is constructed, so it will be dug again for other purposes. So this not only causes great inconvenience, but also a wasteful expenditure. To address this, efforts were put in place to increase coordination so that all cables, pipelines, etc. could be laid simultaneously. PM Gati Shakti will address the past issues through institutionalizing holistic planning for stakeholders for major infrastructure projects. Instead of planning and designing separately in silos, the project will be designed and executed with a common vision. So now, earlier they were, planning and designing separately. Now they all will be put together and they will plan and design together so that the chaos will be reduced to a greater extent. It will incorporate the infrastructure schemes of various ministries and state governments like Bharatmala, Sagarmala, Inland Waterways, dry or land ports, and Udan. So all these things will be brought together for common planning and designing and execution. The PM Gati Shakti is based on 6 pillars. So let's see what are all these 6 pillars of PM Gati Shakti. Pillar number 1 is called as comprehensiveness. It will include all the existing and planned initiatives of various ministries and departments with one centralized portal. So there will be only one centralized portals for all the stakeholders. They work at a common cause. So all the ministries and departments will be brought together at one centralized portal. Each and every department will now have visibility of each other's activities, providing critical data while planning and execution of projects in a comprehensive manner. So there will be visibility among various departments and they can mutually see what is actually happening, and they can have the access to critical data while planning and execution of projects in a comprehensive manner. So that's why first pillar is called as comprehensiveness. And second pillar is called as prioritization. Now, what is prioritization? As I mentioned in the earlier slide, so once the road is constructed, once again it is going to be broken for other purposes. Now they are going to set priorities. So which activity should be done first so that there won't be waste of resources or the taxpayers' money. So that is called as prioritization. So through this, different departments will be able to prioritize their projects through cross-sectoral interactions. And pillar number 3 is called as optimization. The National Master Plan will assist different ministries in planning for projects after identification of critical gaps. For the transportation of goods from one place to other, the plan will help in selecting the most optimum route in terms of time and cost. So that is going to make the process optimized, and that saves again a lot of resources and money. Fourth pillar is called as synchronization. So synchronization is nothing but, so all these days all these departments were working separately, now there will be coordination, so that is called as synchronization. Individual ministries and departments often work in silos, in the sense they work separately till now. There is a lack of coordination in planning and implementation of projects, resulting in delays. PM Gati Shakti will help in synchronizing the activities of each department as well as of different layers of governance in a holistic manner by ensuring coordination of work between them. So when there is coordination and if there is a synchronization among various departments, then everything happens in one particular order, so there won't be loss of infrastructure or revenue or the resources. Pillar number 5 is called as analytical. The plan will provide the entire data at one place, so all other departments can mutually see the data with GIS based spatial planning, that is geographic information system based spatial planning, and analytical tools having 200 plus layers, enabling better visibility to the executive agency. Pillar number 6 is called as dynamic. All ministries and departments will now be able to visualize, review and monitor the process of cross-sectoral projects through the GIS platform, as the satellite imagery will give on-ground progress periodically, and progress of all the projects will be updated on a regular basis on the portal. So all the processes or the the updates of different projects will be updated regularly, so it can be mutually seen across all the stakeholders of this particular sector. It will help in identifying the vital interventions for enhancing and updating the master plan. So these are all the 6 pillars of PM Gati Shakti. With that, let's talk more about Bharatmala Pariyojana. So this Bharatmala Pariyojana is also called as India Garland Project. So Bharat means India, Mala means actually garland. So let us see what is this Bharatmala Pariyojana. The Bharatmala Pariyojana is a centrally sponsored and funded road and highways project of the Government of India. So this is basically construction of roads and highways, and it is funded by the central government or the union government. The total investment for 83,677 kilometers committed new highways is estimated at 5.35 lakh crore, making it the single largest outlay for a government road construction scheme as of December 2017. The project will build highways. Majorly, they concentrate on build highways from Maharashtra, Gujarat, Rajasthan, Punjab, Haryana, and then cover the entire string of Himalayan territories, Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, and then portions of borders of Uttar Pradesh and Bihar alongside Terai, and move to West Bengal, Sikkim, Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, and right up to the Indo-Myanmar border in Manipur and Mizoram. So it is going to cover vast number of districts here for building of highways. Special emphasis will be given on providing connectivity to far-flung borders, that means remote borders, and rural areas, including the tribal and backward areas. The ambitious umbrella program will sub-assume, that means it will absorb or make all departments together, all existing highway projects, including the flagship National Highways Development Project that was actually launched by the Atal Bihari Vajpayee government in 1998. So any other program that is under designated for construction of highways will be put under this particular Sagarmala program. So that is why it is called as the program subsumes all existing highway projects into it. It is both enabler and beneficiary of other key government of India schemes such as Sagarmala dedicated freight corridors, industrial corridors, Udan RCS. So RCS is nothing but Regional Connectivity Scheme, BharatNet, Digital India and Make in India. The Sagarmala program is an initiative by the Government of India to enhance the performance of the country's logistics sector as well. The program envisages unlocking the potential waterways. So this is, to have better logistics at lesser cost, because waterways transportation is always cheaper than transportation by road. So this is the reason why this Sagarmala project actually envisages unlocking the potential waterways and the coastlines to minimize infrastructural investments required to meet these targets. It entails investing rupees 8.5 trillion to set up new mega ports, modernizing India's existing ports, developing of 14 coastal economic zones and coastal economic units, enhancing port connectivity via road, rail, multimodal logistic parks, pipelines and waterways, and promoting coastal community development, with the aim of boosting merchandise exports by $110 billion and generating around 10 crore direct and indirect jobs. So that is actually huge in terms of, with the aim of boosting merchandise exports to an extent of $110 billion and 10 crore job generations. And this Sagarmala program is the flagship program of the Ministry of Shipping to promote port-led development in the country by exploiting India's 7,517 kilometer long coastline, 14,500 kilometers of potentially navigable waterways, and its strategic locations on key international maritime trade routes. Sagarmala aims to modernize India's ports so that ports-led development can be augmented and coastlines can be developed to contribute to India's growth. It also aims at transforming the existing ports into modern world-class ports and integrate the development of ports, the industrial clusters and interland and efficient evacuation system through road, rail, inland and coastal waterways, resulting in ports becoming the drivers of the economic activity in coastal areas. With this, let's talk more about Udan. So what is Udan? It is Ude Desh Ka Aam Nagarik, literally an aviation country for the common citizen. So it is giving aviation facility for the common man. So that is titled as Udan, Ude Desh Ka Aam Nagarik. Aam is nothing but the common man. So is a regional airport development program of the Government of India and part of the regional connectivity scheme of upgrading underserved serviced air routes. Its goal is to make air travel affordable and widespread to boost inclusive national economic development, job growth, and air transport infrastructure development of all regions and states of India. So this is actually the goal of it is to make air travel affordable and widespread. So this is the main goal of it. At the beginning of this scheme, out of total 486 airports, 406 were participating unserved airports, 27 were well-served airports out of 97 non-RCS airports, and 12 were operational airports out of 18 participating underserved regional operational airports with regular fixed wing scheduled flights. Udan scheme will add to this number by expediting the development and operationalization of India's potential target of nearly 425 unserved, underserved, and mostly underdeveloped regional airports with regular scheduled flights. Udan RCS is both an enabler and a beneficiary of other key Government of India schemes such as Bharatmala, Sagarmala, dedicated freight corridors, industrial corridors, BharatNet, Digital India and Make in India, National E-Governance Plan, Startup India and Stand Up India. So with this, let's go to the last article, Nobel for Research on Wages, Jobs. So this actually comes into the category of economics. So the Nobel Prize for Economics was awarded to US-based economist David Card for pioneering research that showed an increase in minimum wage does not lead to less hiring, that immigrants do not lower pay for native-born workers, challenging commonly held ideas. So his research is like minimum wage. So announcing or increasing minimum wage will not reduce the hiring numbers. So it is first research, and if there are any migrant workers to other place, and it doesn't reduce the pay for native born workers. So these are the two researches that has been done by Mr. Card. The prize was shared with two others for creating a way to study these types of societal issues. Canadian-born Dr. Card of the University of California, Berkeley, was awarded one-half of the prize for his research on how minimum wage, immigration, and education affect the labor market. So, half of this prize is given to Dr. Card, and remaining half is again shared by two people. So let's see who are all the other two people shared half of this particular Nobel Prize in Economics. So while the other half was shared by Joshua Angrist from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and Dutch-born Guido Imbens from Stanford University for their framework for studying issues that cannot rely on traditional scientific methods. So these are the three gentlemen. They actually received Nobel 2021 in the area of economics. So with this, the articles of this particular date are completed. So if you have any questions, definitely you can put in comments box. We will try to reply to your questions. Thanks for watching. Namaskara.